Hello gamers, I'm Pruitt, this is Jim Davis, and we're going to be continuing our series on classes with the fighter. So there's no use fighting it, because this intro sucks.
Let's use that one.
They all can't be gold, goddammit.
We ask so much of you.
So Jim,
Yo.
I don't want to battle you on this. But
Well, we're gonna have to start a war.
Yeah, on the dance floor. Let's talk about fighters.
Fighters. Okay, so
This is my wheelhouse. It's my bread and butter.
Right.
My bread basket.
your first character ever was a fighter, and you've stuck with them through the dark days of 3rd edition. I can't remember if you played a fighter in 4th edition, but fighters in 4th edition are great.
I played the Spartan, basically, spear and shield.
Yes, I remember now. Yeah.
Yeah, he was pretty badass. I mean, he got it done.
He got it done. 5th edition, I'm finding that on paper, I am not impressed by fighters.
Yeah.
But every fighter we have had in a campaign, I've been like, damn, that is a great class.
Yeah.
Like, I am impressed by what those characters are able to pull off. You know, this debate over whether or not fighters are up to snuff, or whether or not they've got enough to do. Specifically, it's always the fighter, never like warrior classes in general. It's always the fighter that's a little bit behind for some reason. And I find in 5th edition, on paper, they might not look that impressive, but when
Seems a little bare bones.
Seems a little bare bones. But when you put a weapon in their hand and point them towards the enemy, that enemy's dead. Like, I would not pit an even level fighter against anything else and expect that monster to come out ahead. The fighter's probably going to win, and particularly the higher level you play, and at levels 11 and above, fighters are even better.
Yeah. Once you get those 3 attacks.
Yeah, and so I think, for the people who are worried about fighters, maybe they're like, I think they need a bit more, they need a bit extra. There are certainly areas that fighters can improve in, but give it a shot. Play a fighter.
Yeah.
Watch one of your group play a fighter for a few levels. See if you can get them up into like the mid second tier before you start tinkering around with the class, because I really do think that how they play at the table and how they read on paper in the theory crafting that goes on are 2 different things. All of that said, there are some areas where we could improve fighters.
Yeah.
I think that fighters need a way to break the game outside of combat, and maybe we could do something with morale or leadership or something, sort of turn them into mini warlords of the type, which
Well, I mean, the Battle Master kind of has that. I mean, if you're talking about their 7th level ability, where they can, like, their Student of War or whatever, where they can take a minute to size someone up, a la Heart of Gold, Firefly, where Mal goes and sees Rance Burgess, has a talk with him, takes a measure of the man, then goes, we need to get the F out of here, because that guy is crazy, and he has the power to do it.
Yeah.
And I mean, because that's what Mal did. He took a size of him. He figured out that that guy's like an 8th level psycho.
Yeah, it's great, and that ability to be able to determine sort of some facts about your enemy, their power relative to you. I think Mastermind Rogue has a similar ability, but I love the Battle Master Fighters. It's so flavorful and so awesome as an ability. I think building off of something like that. That said, I find if I was going to tinker with the fighter, that I would want to start collapsing things down into the base class. Like, I kind of think that the athleticism from Champion should be something all fighters get. I also kind of lean towards all fighters being baseline Battle Masters, and then having classes that split off from there, so that they always have access to some kind of maneuver. Then that leaves barbarians as the simple to play, damage dealing, put this in the new guy's hands until they can get their feet wet. Although at the same time, for new players, I let them play whatever they want to play. Don't condescend towards new players and say, like, you can only play simple classes.
Right.
That's BS. I mean, let them play whatever they want to play.
In that case, a champion fighter, it's pretty simple.
Pretty simple.
But
so is the Frenzied Berserker, and so are most of the classes in 5th edition. They're simple enough that new players can find something to do and something to hook them with. So let's maybe talk about the fighters we've seen in action.
Okay, so Rilvian. Now, he was multi-class, but I will say this. Once I started laying the fighter on top of the Order of the Immortal, man, it was only good. Only good, especially once I got to 13th level and got the expanded crit range.
Right.
Because that's the biggest draw. That's why most people, and we'll discuss in later episodes about that, most people just dip in to get to get
those 3 levels to get the expanded crit range. And yes, for our viewers, we will have a show just about multi-classing.
It's coming up.
We'll talk about more of these combos. But for the champion, I look at the champion and I go, this is a fighter's fighter.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I don't see anything wrong with it. Yes, it does not have all the fiddly bits of the Eldritch Knight or the Battle Master.
Yeah.
There are less choices that you have to make moment to moment in combat. But that character still has a mouth and hands and can contribute in all the other pillars of play.
Yeah.
And they're also a really awesome fighter with a second fighting styles to give them a bit more versatility. Maybe you do dueling and archery. You're good with both ranged and hand-to-hand.
Yeah.
2-weapon fighting and AC.
Yeah.
And now you're, big heavy tank.
Right.
There's a lot of different things you can do there.
And eventually you're critting 15% of the time.
Right, with the 18 through 20 crit range at the higher levels. The fact that you get, if you're below half hit points, you're getting that healing boost every round of combat. I find that that's really fun and keeps those kinds of fighters in the fight longer, and just gives them a lot of options. The champion might be the weakest of the 3 players' handbook fighting subclasses, although probably Purple Dragon Knight. I'm not sure. I haven't seen it in action. Don't really know much about Purple Dragon Knights. They don't look that impressive, but maybe we'll need to see one in play in order to see Purple Dragon Knights where they shine and what they're good at.
Exactly. But the Battle Master, we had your brother Josh.
Yeah, brother Josh played Andarius, the Halfling Battle Master.
Yeah.
Used a long sword and basically was was not to be underestimated at all.
No.
Don't let the fact that he's a tiny halfling underestimate the fact that he will lay the hurt down on you.
Right. No, I love that. That's why I had, who was that, Roscoe? He was my halfling barbarian.
Halfling barbarian.
Kind of did the same thing.
So I think that, the fighting class does what it says on the tin. It kills monsters.
Right.
It does. It inflicts the best status effect in the game on monsters: death.
Death.
Very quickly.
Right.
And the higher level you get, the better the fighter is. So maybe at lower levels, maybe the fighter doesn't shine as well compared to a 2-weapon fighting ranger or a paladin who's using all of their slots for divine smite. Maybe the fighter pales a little bit in comparison to them. But the higher level you go, the longer you stick with that class, the fighter's going to be like, yep, I'm the guy for the job. Give me whatever weapon you want, whatever you need. They don't have as many stats to worry about, strength and con for most fighters, or con and dex for ranged. You get more feats, more ASIs. I think that you've got a really strong class to just really lay the hurt on monsters for.
And the last one, Eldritch Knight.
Eldritch Knight. So Eldritch Knight is one of those we've yet to see one in play. I think for a while you had one that maybe got played once or twice.
I played him once in a one-off, and it was fun. I think we were 6th level.
Yeah.
So I lobbied for 7th so I could have Warcaster because I was just like, come on, guys.
Come on.
Let me have it. But it didn't happen. No. So it's like, with the expanded cantrips though, Eldritch Knight.
That changed. So the expanded cantrips in Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide really changed everything. And I kind of think that before that, what are you going to do with your War Magic feature as an Eldritch Knight? True Strike, Blade Ward. I mean,
I always saw it as the option because by that time you're getting 2 attacks around. You're fighting with 2 weapons. You're getting 3, right?
Yeah.
So if you actually want to cast a spell and attack, I get it because you want to cast a ranged spell, still attack somebody on that off round.
Right.
Now
I think with Booming Blade and Green Flame Blade, you're going to see your melee damage as an Eldritch Knight remain comparable to those other options. It might not always be the best.
Yeah.
It might be a couple of points behind, but we can it's a discussion about how much damage you do per round. That's a different topic. But if all you're doing is if the difference in damage per round is 2 or 3 points, or even maybe 5 points, that is not that big of a deal.
Yeah, because it's a variable number.
It's a variable number. Do what seems fun to you.
Yeah.
Cast Booming Blade, get your extra attack. Maybe if you're using feats, Booming Blade and Mobility to dart around the battlefield. Booming Blade and Sentinel to get that opportunity attack. Now they're already moving. They're guaranteed to take that extra damage. I mean, there's a lot of ways to really play out, the magical warrior who uses a little bit of magic to boost their abilities. It's going to lean more towards on the Gish spectrum, towards the fighting side than the casting side, which say Blade Singer or Blade Lock are more casters than they are fighters.
Right.
I don't know. I look at Eldritch Knight and I see in it the same thing that I see in Arcane Trickster, which I had a lot of experience with, which is that you've got a limited range of spells. So it's very important which spells you take. But those spells that you do take, you're going to rely on a lot. They're going to enhance what you can already do. This is on top of the fact that you get Second Wind, Action Surge, bunch of attacks.
Indomitable at 9th level.
Indomitable at 9th level.
The saving throw. Oh, yeah, I'm going to pass that save. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. ASIs, feats. So I think you can have a really strong Eldritch Knight. Maybe if you're multi-classing, you dip 2 if you're an elf and Blade Singer. Kind of just even go a little bit further, give yourself some extra first level slots. But I think 20 levels of Eldritch Knight would be a blast to play.
Yeah, most definitely. So as far as fighters in a campaign, in a campaign setting, if it was going to be more, if you wanted a more martial campaign feel, how would you integrate that?
So the military campaign is one of those kinds of games that gets bandied about a lot. You kind of see it. Oh, I want to run a military campaign. How do I do this? I want to feature fighters prominently in the campaign. What does that look like? So if you're going to build a world in which fighters exist and have, are a part of your world, is the battle master do certain suites of abilities and sort of combinations of abilities represent different schools of thought? So that you have like the Wudan Mountain School of Battle Mastery versus the Flying Garuda School of Battle Mastery, kind of borrowing from Kung Fu movies in that respect.
Yeah.
Is it more like the Spanish versus Italian style fencing that we had in our own world, where they've just two different takes on using the same weapons, the same whatever, very different takes on how to fight and what it looks like to
do you fight
in those kind of duelings.
What is it? A basket of rapiers?
A brace of rapiers.
Brace of rapiers versus
versus your cloak and rapier. Fighting in a circle versus lines, like how you envision the battlefield.
That is a movie everyone needs to see.
Was it 16? It's that Russian movie with
1692 or something like that.
Something like that. I forget. It's a Russian movie where the Spanish fencer goes and defends some towns in Russia.
But yeah,
it's pretty sweet actually.
We'll try to put a link in the description, but where they describe how you fence in a circle. And just the explanation of how to properly fence is
it's amazing, yeah.
And not to mention the siege scene.
The siege scene, yes.
There's an amazing siege scene where it's like, oh, that's what with the cannonballs with a chain.
With a chain.
That's what it looks like when you shoot that at a group of charging people on horseback.
That would actually absolutely what it looks like.
Yeah. Everything gets decapitated.
That's a great movie. I wish I could remember. It's 16 something.
Yeah.
But I think the military campaign is one of those kinds of games in Dungeons and Dragons that a lot of people maybe think about or want to run, but can seem intimidating. Number one, if there's this sort of impulse to say, well, how do I have independent adventures when I'm part of a formal, structured military hierarchy? And I would say to that is a modern perspective we are bringing to the military campaign.
Right.
If this is a medieval or Renaissance style world, militaries of that age did not have the level of discipline and command and chain of command that they do now.
I mean, a lot of it was a lot of militias and mercenary companies.
Absolutely. It's the king pointing to a guy and giving him a sack of gold and saying, raise me an army and go fight for me. And that sounds exactly like what adventurers are doing. Your high-level fighter gets a couple thousand gold coins, has to go town to town, raise an army, train them, take them on. In a lot of ways, that's what older editions of D&D start to look like.
Yes.
You have followers numbering in a couple of dozen, up to 50 or so. That's an army in terms of what you can do, raiding villages, attacking your enemies. And then it only builds up from there.
Another good source material for that style, Berserk, the Golden Art trilogy or whatever.
Yes.
But I mean, you're talking about armies fighting each other.
There's
not a lot of magic. There's some demons in there.
Yeah. So the military game, there's some pitfalls for it. In a lot of ways, you have to have flexibility. It's very much like a traditional campaign. I can recall a couple of military games that we've tried to play in where the DM wasn't very flexible on what he wanted us to do, and it ended up being like, well, we're just going to walk away. We have a player revolt.
Deuces out.
And then you have no game.
Yeah.
Then
the game ended like half an hour later.
Yeah, and then the game ends. So you still want to have the the level of flexibility that you would have in a more traditional game. But let's say you are mercenaries in a world like the Forgotten Realms, and your characters are a collection of misfits and adventurers who use their money to buy up a bunch of mercenaries, and they travel around and sell their services to cities like Waterdeep and Baldur's Gate, or even smaller villages like Tribor or something like that. And then they get involved in the world, and they do other things, and they go on military campaigns. Maybe you're fighting orcs in the Spine of the World Mountains. Maybe you are tasked with making sure that a particular road is safe from travelers, or safe for travelers, rather.
Yeah, the road between Tin Towns and Luskan has been under attack by ice yetis or
whatever it is. And so you run a larger style. Maybe you bust out a map. Okay, we send this squad here and that squad there, and there's different characters, and you play like the commanders, who are higher level fighters, but you play the sub-commanders, who are smaller, lower level fighters.
Yeah, going out on their forays into the wilderness.
There's a lot of ways that you could feature it. You could run a campaign set entirely at a nightly tournament somewhere in Cormyr, and everybody's playing some variant of fighter as they joust and wrestle and duel and sword fight against each other. All the while, when there's not a area of the tournament that you're focusing on, there's backroom dealing and politicking that's going on in the wings.
Have you ever thought about this, Jim? Have you ever thought about running a game like the campaign is literally a siege? Not an adventure.
Just
the campaign is literally a siege. You're inside, inside or out. But the entire thing is a siege. And the whole thing is you're trying to either get in that castle or keep them out. And that's the whole thing. So when in the inside the walls, it becomes about resource management, sneaking out, covering all your bases.
And you got to tunnel under we found out today, our diviners found out today that they're tunneling under the walls. You got to get your rock gnomes and earth elementals and everything together. Now you're fighting in the tunnels that you're digging underneath the city. There's a lot of counter
combat.
There's a lot of counter divination magics. There's a lot of forays sneaking out. There's that resource gathering you're talking about, trying to find allies for people outside.
Trying not to starve.
Trying not to starve. It would be really, that'd be an awesome campaign. You'd take a lot of inspiration from Stalingrad, Leningrad from World War II. Yes, that's an amazing campaign idea. That's awesome. I think I would both run or play in it.
What was the Viggo Mortensen Captain
Alatriste?
Alatriste.
Yes.
That's some. You want to see some chilling tunnel combat? You want to see what it looks like to fight someone with a dagger inside of a tunnel?
While they're pumping sulfur into your tunnels. Yes. So Captain Alatriste is another great movie. Viggo Mortensen, a Spanish film that depicts Renaissance warfare at its finest, pike and shot and siege warfare at the time. I think it's a great inspiration for people who want to look and see what does D&D warfare look like. So that's sort of the low fantasy, big blocks of soldiers fighting against each other. Higher fantasy, D&D warfare probably looks a lot like modern warfare. They're not going to clump up. That's how you get blown up with a fireball. You fight in small teams against one another. I imagine it's a lot more skirmishing involved.
More SEAL Team 6s.
More SEAL Team 6s. That's what your adventurers are there for. It's one of the things about, say, a setting like Eberron, which really tried to take the assumptions of D&D seriously. What does a war in a D&D world really look like? Well, it's golems and high-level magic and airships and all this other stuff, and it wrecked the place.
Right. They just didn't stay in castles using horses.
Right.
Forever because they had magic. They were like, well, we have magic, so let's keep going with the progress.
Yeah,
that's what I loved about Eberron. It is progress happening with magic.
Yeah, and so you have those two spectrums. You have on the one hand, you have the big blocks of polearm wielding commoners fighting each other, and then on the other, quasi superhero World War III level antics that you get up to, and your campaign probably falls somewhere in the middle of that. But I think that there's a lot of fun to be had in exploring military games with Dungeons and Dragons and using the fighter as sort of the showcase for that. They fight all day, every day. They just need a short rest. Now they're back in the action.
Yeah, and that's the thing with the fighter. Just give them a short rest.
Yeah,
for the most part.
There you go.
Awesome. Trev, we're done.
No.
Somebody send help.
Somebody send
help. He never feeds us. He never. Hey, what's up, man?
Buddy.
Send help. All right, intro.
Intro. Fighters fighting fightingly. Fee fight, foe, no. Feats, fights, foes, and sums. These are the things you get from WebDM. Oh my god! Yeah, that actually.
Feats, fights.
Foes and sums. We're talking fighters on WebDM.
But you did P505 my spell.
I know.
Yeah.
Damn it!